Hello and welcome to Time About the Movies Flashback. Today we are flashing back to the last bit of movies that we have for 1987. Only 4 films in my 1987 leftovers, as you can see here. Not that many to talk about, but the movies that we do have here are memorable. If you watched a lot of Disney Channel and Cartoon Network back in the day, and you saw these movies on there all the time, because that's all these movies that we have on here are films that you remember from the Disney Channel, Cartoon Network, videos, all that type of stuff. So, this should be a very fun one, especially for me, considering that these are usually my more popular videos when I cover nostalgic animation in general, but I'm fine with that, because I love nostalgic animation. I'm glad to see that that's what anything with nostalgic animation overall does very well here on the channel, but with all that said, let's just go ahead and dive on into it. Let's wrap 1987 off with these 4 films, starting off with the Disney release, that is, The Brave Little Toaster.
Hang on to your hats, you devil dogs, because the master blaster of all time is going to give you a soul injection.
They're the 5 spunkiest little characters you've ever met.
It's a possibility.
For years, they've been waiting.
Oh, you see?
Is it him?
And waiting.
He loved us.
That's right.
For their master to come home.
Master! Maggie!
We've been dumped. Abandoned.
We're not going to give up hope.
But now their waiting is over.
We're going out to find him.
What?
We're going to go out and find the master.
Join a brave little toaster and his unusual pals on a magical journey.
I'm ready.
Through a world of mystery.
Light! I see light!
Fantasy. Laughter. And adventure. It's an exciting, strange, and fantastic voyage where you'll see scary places.
Hey, fellas, look!
A whole lot of little creatures.
Here.
A few odd contraptions.
But I can't open a lamp and a shaver.
And some devices that are simply remarkable. They're 5 plucky appliances determined to find their master no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what.
Join an inquisitive radio.
What does that mean?
A bright little lamp.
I'm glad we don't have to do this every day.
A snuggly blanket.
Mm-hmm.
A crotchety old vacuum cleaner.
You're telling me.
And a brave little toaster.
Time to go.
In a heartwarming story for the entire family. Plug into the adventure of The Brave Little Toaster.
Yes, the magical, heartfelt adventure for the whole family that will literally scar your kids for life. And you think I'm kidding. If you have not seen this movie and are just looking at this and going like, oh, why am I even talking about this? It's just a movie about these talking appliances and things going after their master. You have not seen this movie, and you are not prepared for some of the most incredible and deeply effective animated movies you will ever see in your entire life. So this is The Brave Little Toaster, based off of a book of the same name. This is done by Hyperion Animation, along with the Kushner Lock Company. We'll get to them in just a little bit here, but let me run down the plot for you. This is set in the world where household appliances and other electronics come to life, pretending to be lifeless in the presence of humans. The story focuses on 5 anthropomorphic household appliances: a toaster, a lamp, a blanket, a radio, and a vacuum cleaner, who go on a quest to search for their master, their owner, essentially, who they still think is a kid, but is now grown up, as it's been many, many years since he's been to this house in general. And like I said, this is produced by Hyperion Animation and the Kushner Lock Company, and a lot of CalArts graduates, most of them, some of the original members of the Pixar Animation Studios, were involved with the film. In fact, back in 1982, the rights were acquired by Disney, and John Lasseter, who was then employed at Disney as an animator on their classic animated films, wanted to do a CGI film based on that, but it was turned down. And a few hours after that test drill that he did, he got fired by Disney. Essentially, they thought that he was too crazy for this idea, and he essentially was let go from his job because of this. That's an interesting story in general. If you want to, there's more to that story in general. If you can find the Pixar story documentary from the Wall-E DVD, or you can find it online too. But it's definitely worth checking out. There's a little segment about that in general. But yeah, the film did eventually get made. It eventually received a limited theatrical release that wasn't even released by Disney. It was released by, I think it was Atlantic Releasing Company, who had been putting out I think they put out the Care Bears' third film, Adventures in Wonderland, and they put out, I think, Heathcliff the movie, I'm not mistaken, but they were a smaller independent more smaller independent company, but of course it was later released by Disney by videotape, and then eventually made its way onto the Disney Channel and led to the two sequels, The Brave Little Toaster to the Rescue and The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars. Excuse me. It's an idea so ridiculous. I'm burping in my mouth. I'm burping in my mouth thinking about it. Because yeah, how does the Brave Little Toaster go to Mars? You're gonna have to look for that in the 1999 or 1998 left. It's either the 1998 or 99 leftovers. Because it's weird. Because Goes to Mars is the third film in the Brave Little Toaster series, and yet it was released as the second film. And then To the Rescue is the third film that was released, but it was the second film produced. And you can definitely tell there's a major difference between To the Rescue and Goes to Mars, because, yeah, Goes to Mars literally has the master and his wife having a baby, and in To the Rescue, she's still pregnant in that movie. So, yeah, that's another weird thing about those sequels in general. But, like I said before, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the original. And like I said, who would have guessed a movie centering on 5 household appliances would lead into one of the most incredible and deeply effective animated movies ever? For starters, it's a simple concept. It's something we've seen done before. Toy Story perfected it later on down the road, but it's a lot of solid effort to put in this movie that you would expect. Solid animation. Hyperion usually does a very good job with this, as well as Kushner-Locke, who also worked on Bebe's Kids and Rover Dangerfield, just to name a few. Solid animation, great characters, nice music, some of the most intense, heavier moments as a kid you would never expect to see in a movie like this, but just such a good movie, man. I mean, this thing throws so many crazy ideas to you, but it's not afraid to have those lighter moments, too. That trailer makes it seem like the entire movie is just the lighter moments of it. Like, this is the type of movie that, back in the day when you would watch, like, The Simpsons or Alvin and the Chipmunks, there'd be they'd be at the movie theater, and they'd be like, oh, let's go see this horror movie right here, this Nightmare on Elm Street knockoff, and then they were just like, no, we're gonna go see the happy My Little Pony movie or something like that, like this movie that clearly is made for little babies and all that. Like, that's what you would think with a title like The Brave Little Toaster. But let me tell you, this thing it just goes all over the place, but in a good way. It gets you in it sucks you in right away with this great opening that. Not much happens. It's just a quiet opening with this light, comfy music by the great David Newman, who I think is a very underrated composer. It just gives you a good idea of keeping you intrigued in what you're in for, especially for a kid's film. I mean, this is a movie that has a lot of pretty much everything. Lighter moments where the pacing can take its time and you're invested in what's going on, to the holy shit, what the fuck is this moment that just leaves a lasting nostalgic impact on you. I mean, there's a lot of dark, heavy moments in this film. The toaster's crazy, psychotic firefighter clown dream, to the air conditioner voiced by Phil Hartman literally short-circuiting himself to death, to the climax where the toaster literally sacrifices his life to save the master from getting crushed by a trash compactor by literally jumping into the motor and literally killing himself doing that. Of course, he doesn't really kill himself. He does eventually get fixed by his master, but it's still, though, like, that's heavy stuff for a kid to take, and for me as a kid, it never really bugged me all that much, surprisingly. I'm like when Judge Doom is revealed to be a toon, that's something that just leaves a lasting impact on you. Just like, that scares the living bejesus out of me. But this, it's amazing that I was not scared shitless watching this as a kid. It's just like, no, I was in for the adventure, along for the ride, and yeah, I love the fact that this is the definition of a 1980s kids movie. It's intense, it's a dark thing. It says, we do not care if your child becomes scarred for life, we're doing this shit, and I loved every single moment of it. We all loved every single moment of it. That's why we love stuff like The Land Before Time and American Tail, the Don Bluth movies in general, like movies that were doing much better than what Disney was doing at the time. I mean, that's the beauty of movies like this, man. They don't make films like this anymore. The only one I think we've come close to as of late was The Wild Robot, which felt like an 80s kids movie done the right way in modern times. I mean, that's just something that I miss a lot with a lot of movies like what we had back in the day. But The voice work is great. You got Deanna Oliver, who would later, of course, go on to write for Tiny Toon Adventures at Animaniacs as the Toaster. Tim Day, Tim Stack as the Lamp. John Lovitz as the radio. Thurl Ravenscroft, Tony the Tiger, and the voice of the Grinch singing in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, playing the vacuum. Phil Hartman's the air conditioner, among many, many others. And as I said, it's Hyperion Animation. These are the guys that did Bebe's Kids, Rover Dangerfield, the Itsy Bitsy Spider Short, the Proud Family. Just great to see them in there. The music is really good. The songs by Van Dyke Parks are just so well done. Worthless is just such a catchy-ass song, man. Like, once you hear that song, it is never going to leave your eardrums for the next week. I know. I've heard that song so many times. It's just like, you just get so hooked onto this movie, man. It's just, everything about it just works. There's nothing really more I can say about this movie that hasn't already been said already. It's a great movie. Maybe one of the most overlooked Disney animated movies ever made. And, you know, this is a year where we had a sort of Disney movie with the Chipmunk Adventure that's also kind of the same thing. Because a lot of Disney animators did work on the film, even though technically it's not a Disney movie, but it was still done by a lot of the notable Disney personalities too. I mean, 1987 was a pretty good year for movies like that in general. This is one of those great examples. A classic movie, great animation, great voice work, great music, great intense moments, great softer moments. It's an all-around winner. Plain and simple. Sequels, not so much, but I've said my piece about those things, so take that for what you will. But that is The Brave Little Toaster, so let's go ahead and wrap up the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movies with the last 3 films I have here, and that is starting off with Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers.
On a dark stretch of road miles away from civilization, 3 friends will stumble upon a mystery and some of the creepiest ghouls they've ever seen. Who would have thought their best chance for survival would come from 3 ghostly brothers? Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers, premiering next Saturday at 8 on Cartoon Network.
Which, for some reason, I still think of it as Scooby-Doo and the Boo Brothers. I don't know why, but for some reason, when I think of this movie, for some reason, the "and" is there instead of meets. But we can really call this movie what it really is. Scooby-Doo meets Fatso, Stinky, and Stretch from Casper's uncles. Because, let's be honest, that's exactly who these guys are. But after the death of Shaggy's uncle Beauregard, he, Scooby, and Scrappy arrive at his uncle's plantation to collect the inheritance. And if you look at that plantation, it literally looks like the plantation from Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. But as soon as they arrive, they find out that it's haunted by the ghost of a Confederate soldier. With the spook on their trails when they search for Shaggy's inheritance, they hire the help of the Blues Brothers, a trio of ghost exterminators, to help catch this nasty ghoul. Ghosts are ghost exterminators, which, okay, I'll give them credit. That's actually kind of a unique little twist on things. It's not like they're literally, I mean, yeah, they're ripping off Stretch, Fatso, and Stinky from the Casper series, but at least they are doing something a little bit different, so I'll give them that. But besides that, though, this is kind of a jumbled mess of a movie. They introduced way too many new characters into this that have no reason to be there, and you know they're never going to be back for any Scooby-Doo properties. And I'm not talking about the people who are eventually behind, you know, what the mystery is in general. They're just nothing but cardboard cutouts of cliched characters, and most of them are completely pointless. It's like the people who wrote this had no idea what kind of a story they wanted to tell. Just put Shaggy and Scrappy-Doo in a situation where Shaggy has to inherit a house from his uncle, who was never mentioned before this and will never be mentioned ever again, with the help of 3 ghost exterminators who are ghosts themselves, chased by a ghost of a Confederate soldier, a typical Southern cop, 2 hillbillies, and an escaped ape. I would love to know what drugs they were smoking when they wrote the script, because they basically just threw everything but the kitchen sink in this movie. And knowing the writers of this, they probably were about to throw a sink in there as well. That's how lazy this whole movie is. Like, this is a lazy movie, man. They throw so much at you. It's anything but a simple movie. Kids can't follow the story because so much is being thrown at them than the normal kid who's watching this at the time would have. No idea what's going on because so many forgettable things are happening. Scooby-Doo's been in much better movies. This is actually one of the worst Scooby-Doo movies, and that's saying a lot because there have been some pretty bad Scooby-Doo movies, not just in live-action form, but also in animated form as well, but this is surprisingly one of the worst ones. So that's one of them. So let's go ahead and move on to the next Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movie. Probably the most notable one because it's a crossover featuring two series of characters who have met in other specials before, but never within continuity. It's the Jetsons meet the Flintstones.
A time machine brought two scared men together. Thank goodness for friendly wives.
I love your dress. Well, thank you.
Together for the first time, the Jetsons are adapting to the prehistoric way of life, while in the future, the Flintstones are adjusting to some culture shock of their own. The Stone Age meets the Space Age when Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater presents the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, Saturday at 8 on Cartoon Network.
Or as the Simpsons like to put it,
Coming up next, the Flintstones meet the Jetsons.
Uh-oh, I smell another cheap cartoon crossover.
which is funny because they've had some cheap cartoon crossovers of their own, but still fun cheap cartoon crossovers. I mean, anytime The Simpsons can beat Family Guy and Futurama and The Critic, who am I going to complain about that? But yeah, believe it or not, back when this was coming on the air, it was one of the biggest crossovers of the time. Surprisingly, because, yeah, like I said before, these characters have met before in other Hanna-Barbera productions, but never before in a single storyline within the continuity of both shows. So it was seen as kind of a big deal in general. And this was that, like I said, this was like the main feature of this Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 package that they would be doing for the next 2 years. And essentially, the story of this film in general is that, you know, Elroy creates a time machine in which the family uses to hopefully see the 25th century, but when the time machine gets switched to the past instead of the future, the Jetsons are sent back into the past where they come across the Flintstones, who agree to take them in while Elroy fixes the machine. Meanwhile, both Fred and Barney have just lost their jobs, hoping to gain them back with the help of George, but that also backfires too. And as the Jetsons are getting ready to go home, the time machine accidentally sends the Flintstones into the future, leaving the Jetsons in the Stone Age. That's literally the plot of the movie. I mean, there's other elements in there, but we're mainly focusing on the main plot of the film, and overall, I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing spectacular about the movie. I mean, it's cool to see the Jetsons and the Flintstones meeting in an actual movie and having it make sense in general, but, you know, it's a lot of the same humor that comes from both shows, and really, there's nothing else about it that makes it that memorable. I mean, it's a good piece of nostalgic fluff. If you did grow up with the show in general, this is right up your alley overall. As far as a crossover goes, it does deliver what it promises, but it's kind of also generic too. The comedy isn't really all that strong, plus there's a lot of, like, pop culture references that are not just outdated, they're really outdated. Like, there's literally a part where the movie just stops for like a bit, where Fred becomes this big hit in the future because nobody really has seen a caveman before, and Mr. Spacely's using it as a way to get the upper hand on Cogsworth. And, you know, he appears on this Johnny Carson-like talk show, only to have a Joan Rivers lookalike ask him to be on her show. And just like, it's referencing the bitter feud between Carson and Rivers that had happened the year before at Fox, and, you know, when Rivers signed on to the late night show, which would be fine, except by the time the movie had aired, that thing had already, Joan Rivers' show had already ended, so the reference was already dated before the movie even premiered. I mean, I know the animation process takes a long time, but good lord, Hanna-Barbera couldn't figure out that joke wouldn't work even by the time that aired. Like, they really thought that was going to be a joke that was going to last throughout the ages. Like, were there really people that thought that Joan Rivers was going to really be the next big thing on a network that didn't even premiere its main primetime schedule until 6 months after the show came on? Like, no joke. The Late Show premiered in October of '86 on Fox. Fox didn't start putting on primetime shows until April of '87, so no wonder the show didn't do very well, because that's just a whole other thing altogether. And again, kind of like with Scooby-Doo and the Boo Brothers, we're introducing new characters who've never appeared in either shows, and they will never appear ever again with both shows, so what's the point? It's already been made clear that both shows are very similar, so why are you just wasting time creating characters that we'll never see again in any other production? There's literally a character that's a rip-off of Cogswell. I think it's a Cogswell from the Jetsons, that is literally supposed to be the enemy of Mr. Slate, who you never see before in any of the other Flintstone shorts and specials or episodes, and will never be in any others at this point. So, what's the point? And also, probably the worst thing about this movie is that it kind of cops out at the end. Like, every major plot point gets revealed, except the Flintstones are told by Elroy that the time machine isn't working and can't be fixed. They never explain how it can't be fixed, but it just can't be fixed because fuck it, just go with it. And they take the car that was sent back with them off to a hotel, which I guess because they had. So what eventually happens at the end is that Mr. Spacely sees the Flintstones Flintstone mobile, and they decide to like use hover conversion to make it the cars of the future. So for the nostalgia buffs, and so I guess that makes sense that maybe that one there was also given the cover converter in general. But so they take the car that was sent back to them off to a hotel, but as they're about to leave, the car suddenly sends them back because the car absorbed the time machine's quadrupotence. The Flintstones then bond a fond farewell to the Jetsons and are sent back to their proper time. Roll credits. In other words, the movie pulls a Deus Ex Machina in order to end the movie. I mean, really? I mean, I get that this was made for a specific audience, but you couldn't think of a better explanation than that. I mean, kids' cartoons back then were very bland and didn't have a huge thought process, but come on. Like, you're telling me that a car made out of stone can absorb technological elements thousands of years ahead of its time in order to send somebody back in time? Like, does that mean all the other cars that they make can do this? I mean, nothing about the ending makes any sense whatsoever, except, fuck it, we need to end the movie and tie it up and create a major plot hole. Like, again, to be fair, this was made at a time when most cartoons weren't meant to be nothing but silly kid fare and to sell you toys. And really, it's hard to give the movie praise because of just how silly and over the top and how they really don't give a fuck on how to end a movie. This can get really corny sometimes here, but like I said, it's not a terrible movie. It works fine for what it is. It's a silly kids movie, but really, this is a movie that can only be enjoyed if you love the Flintstones and the Jetsons back in the day. You watched them as kids. And I watched them a lot on TV. I watched them when they were on Cartoon Network and TBS and TNT. I have the DVD sets. I mean, these are great shows overall. They still hold up after all these years. And yeah, small kids themselves can really enjoy it as well. But I can't recommend it if you're not familiar with the material given to you. But if you really aren't familiar with it anyway, you probably shouldn't even be here to begin with. But like I said, it's an okay movie. Nothing really to put it over other movies of its kind. It's just an okay movie. It'll appease the Jetsons and Flintstone fans out there, just like the Simpsons and Family Guy crossover did. I mean, that one was fine if you love both shows, but I think that would have been a whole lot better. But that's the difference with that and the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones is that the Family Guy crossover was written by Family Guy writers, and the Simpsons writers had nothing to do with that. I think it would have helped if the Simpsons writers had a little hand in that, so it could be better, but as it is, it's fine. And that's how I feel about this. It's a fine film. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last of the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movies, the first one actually that aired, Yogi's Great Escape. So yeah, unfortunately I couldn't find a Cartoon Theater promo or a Disney Channel promo. The only one I was able to find was like a half-second promo for a Cartoon Network double feature with Tweety's High Flying Adventure. So I didn't feel like it was necessary to get that. So I just grabbed a little bit of the opening there. But this was the first of the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movies, and the story is that Yogi hears that Jellystone Park might be closing. So he, Boo Boo, and 3 orphan bear cubs flee the forest so they will not be put in a zoo. And I have to be honest, this is one of those ones that, like I said, I watched a lot of these as a kid. This is one of those ones I definitely watched. And they do so hold some personal fond memories for me, as most of the Hanna-Barbera stuff does from the time period. So there was a little bit of a nostalgic factor here when I rewatched it again not too long ago. But I gotta be honest with you, this might be the worst movie Hanna-Barbera has ever done, in my opinion. And that's saying a lot. It's just not a good movie, and the biggest problem with it is that it falters in its constant use of recycling plots from other things that Hanna-Barbera had done. I know that they would recycle animation to save money, but recycling stories taken from things they've done is ridiculous. There are so many aspects taken from the far superior movie Hey There, It's Yogi Bear, which was a theatrical release from back in 1964, which actually was re-released in '86, and so yeah, This thing comes out a year and a half after that was re-released, and people knew what that movie was. So, yeah, you don't think somebody's gonna look at this and go like, "Wow, these two films do seem very familiar." Like, they're taking stuff from that and putting it in this, and it's been done before. Like the whole plot about Yogi and Boo Boo going on the road, and even the ending, literally steals from the movie. Like, it literally steals from the ending. And if that wasn't bad enough, the three Cubs are completely useless. There's literally no reason for them to be there, except to just be cute and sell toys. Like, even the cameos are really pointless from the Hanna-Barbera stars. Like, you have Quick Draw McGraw, you got Wally Gator, you got Snagglepuss, and they're just there to just fill the time out here. I mean, at 93 minutes, this is such a waste of time of a movie, and is there anything worth watching about it? From an animation perspective, I guess you could say that it's a serviceable effort. If the product itself isn't going to give me something to work with, then it really isn't worth it. I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, great visuals don't make a movie, and you can't just wow me with something and expect me to give this a good rating right off the bat. You need to give me something more than that. And to be honest, like, there's been some other Yogi Bear movies that by the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 that have been better. Like, Magical Flight of the Spruce Goose at least was trying to do something unique and different with it. And even Invasion of the Space Bears was trying to do something fun with it. Yogi the Easter Bear came out later on. The Yogi Bear 2010 movie, I think, is much better. But this is pretty pointless. It steals from a far superior Yogi Bear movie and just makes it worse. It has pointless characters and cameos, and it's just not a fun movie. There's been better movies with the character of Yogi Bear. At the aforementioned Hey There's Yogi Bear, the 2010 movie, Yogi's First Christmas. I mean, this is definitely one of the worst Hanna-Barbera movies they've ever done. This is right up there with Tom and Jerry the movie in terms of laziness and how ridiculously pointless it is. But yeah, that's how bad of a movie this is. This is just not a good film. Major disappointment. Yogi's Great Escape. And so with all that said, that's going to wrap up another episode of Time About the Movie's Flashback. We'll flash back to the first weekend of 1986 we'll cover, which is coincidentally the last weekend of 1986. Christmas weekend, where we have Jane Fonda and Jeff Bridges starring in The Morning After. We have Neil Simon's Brighton Beach Memoirs, and we also have Duet for One. So 3 films to take a look at to kick off 1986, and we'll take a look at those 3 films on Friday, so be on the lookout for that. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and also don't forget to check out the playlist as well as the previous episode. So with all that said, I'm off. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, as always, take care.